friends, I am back here on the channel. It is the most earth-breaking, ground-shaking, but never media show money-taking. The man, the myth, the legend, the most electrifying villain here in YouTube entertainment today, Mr. General Zod. Alright, so, as promised, I will be going through every single, yes, that's right, every single Twilight Zone episode. In my first few reviews, you'll notice a tone shift. Because the first ones and the last one of this anthology series didn't really piss me off. But some episodes. Alright, so let's get started. I will give you my pros, my cons, what I liked about this episode, what I did not, and I'm not going to do my Zod approves or Zod disapproves. However, look for it. I will do an overall series overview where I will tell you whether or not the series as a whole is worth you checking out, in which case I will do my Zod approves or Zod disapproves. You'll figure out how I feel by the end of all of these reviews that I'm going to do on 10 episodes, where 3, maybe 4 are good, and the rest are a bunch of steaming pile of shit. So let's get with this good one. Episode 1, entitled The Comedian, in the new 2019 Twilight Zone reboot. Now, a little history lesson for all of you who are fans of the Twilight Zone. There have been 2 iterations of the Twilight Zone. What you say, Zod? I don't remember a second remake. They did do a remake. It was also on CBS, or maybe Fox. I have to look that up. But it was hosted by Forest Whitaker. And actually, I liked it. I don't know what happened. I don't think that it necessarily had the backing it needed to continue. It wasn't on a network that would fund it to build a fan base, but it did have a small following. And this reboot was, I believe, in 2008, 2009, and Forest Whitaker was the host of the first iteration or remake of the Twilight Zone we got. And for the most part, they had some pretty good stories. So when I heard Jordan Peele, the man behind Us and Get Out, and who did the Keenan and Peele show, who's becoming in my mind, the next horror legend, was going to do the hosting of the show, I was like, why haven't I heard about this? Of course, I was not following CBS All Access, but don't worry, I'm going to be covering them. Anyways, so this stars Tracy Morgan and Ramirez Samir. You guys know, he's a comedian, okay? He's in a lot of stuff. He's a pretty good up-and-coming actor, and pretty well-known in the comedy world. And the first episode, entitled The Comedian, is actually a really good episode. Okay, so the overview is a struggling comedian who tries to do real-world comedy, wants to make his mark. And he's in a relationship, he's got a girlfriend, but he's not quite happy with his station in life. And he doesn't want to do what comedians do and sell out. And then he meets Tracy Morgan's character, who says, what would you do to have everything you wanted? And if you could get everything you wanted, would you be willing to erase other people in order to achieve the fame that you want? And apparently, Tracy Morgan's character is hinted to as this guy who was a up-and-coming comic who just vanishes without a trace. And it appears to me he reappears to make this sort of deal with struggling comedians to gain them fame. But there's a price for this fame. Now look, this is going to contain minor spoilers, and if you're watching this review or know about this, either you've seen this or you don't care. So I've got to spoil certain aspects of the episode in order to tell you the good and the bad parts of the episode. So let's just get right down to the pros. First of all, this show is pretty well shot, and CBS does put a considerable amount of care in their products that they're putting out. So the shot quality is good. The camera angles are good. I get a good sense of the people who are acting in this put a lot. Now, Tracy Morgan, let's start with Tracy Morgan's character. This is a take off of an episode called Let's Make a Deal or something like that. And it was hinted to in Let's Make a Deal that this guy made a deal I think he was an actor and he wanted to become famous, and he made a deal essentially with the devil to gain his powers, and there were repercussions. This plays out kind of similar to that episode, which I noticed some of these episodes are older episodes redone in a new time period. So this kind of takes that idea and modernizes it. And now I don't have a problem with putting a modern spin on an older episode and updating it. I thought it was done and handled very well. There is some political stuff in there, but it's from the angle of comics, and they're making fun of some of it. So when I saw it, I was like, well, CBS is taking a different approach. I like this. And I was tricked. But we'll get to that. That's later. But anyways, so the crux of the story is a sort of be careful what you wish for kind of a thing, because in order for him to gain his fame, he essentially has to make fun of people. This goes against the type of character that they establish. They establish he wants to be this morally ambiguous person in the world of comedy. And Tracy Morgan makes the comment in a scene that he's more funny when he talks about his life. And there's a lot of little foreshadowing. And this is very reminiscent of old Twilight Zone. There's a lot of good setup here. And there is a genuinely good message behind this story, which is be careful what you wish for. Be careful about selling out who you are to achieve fame. All these things are good. This is what attracted me to this show. It was thought-provoking as the original Rod Serling Twilight Zone, or the remake with Forrest Whitaker as the host, was. These are all good things that it sets up. Now, my cons to this was there's a lot of things that you have to put together as the audience, and a lot of things alluded to. Now, in the original Twilight Zone, it's made obvious midway in the episode that this person is the devil, and it adds for a layer of suspense. And while Tracy Morgan plays a role in getting these events started, and he makes a cameo here and there to kind of move the story along, I felt like his role didn't really add much, and anything could have been put, or anyone, into that role. And it's a shame because he's really good in this episode. Like, he's sitting by the bar. He's got this smoke going around him. He's very mysterious. And I would have liked to know, is he the devil? Is he some guy who just got this ability and then was destroyed by it and sort of decided to pass it along to these people who are kind of like him? I mean, is it destructive? Is he good? Is he bad? This is all too left unfinished. Like, there's no good backstory into that character, and I wish they did that. Now, Samir is a very funny comic when he's making fun of people, and some of the jokes are hilarious. And there are little political things here or there. He gets rid of this person who's a Nazi and things like that. I mean, there's a little bit of the politics laced in there, but it's within the story, and it makes sense to be in there because it's part of his ideals and what he believes, and it's part of this slow transformation. And the greatest part is there's a scene where he uses this ability and he erases his girlfriend's tutor because he gets jealous. And then a chain of events happens where, because he erased the tutor, she's supposed to be a lawyer and instead becomes a waitress. And I thought that was fucking hilarious and a sort of big 360. And it nailed home that there were consequences. But here's some things I didn't like. One, he erases his own nephew. And I have a problem with this because they spend time, but they don't really show you how this impacts him and his caution to using this ability. He still goes and essentially erases people. And then the resolution at the end doesn't really give me a resolution, because he comes up with the idea that maybe to bring these people back, he has to take himself out of the equation. And when this happens, I don't see signs of people coming back. So did his sacrifice mean anything? And this is the problem when I review these episodes that you'll run into a lot with this series. They leave things ambiguously up in the air. The problem is, the original Twilight Zone left things hanging, but they gave you a somewhat resolution, and the rest of it, as the audience, you had to put together. This leaves it too ambiguous, and I don't believe that the audience can really decipher what would happen, and there's no clear-cut ending. It's just, it happens to another comedian at the end. And I understand what this particular writer was doing, but the way they went about it, they may have given the audience too much credit. Typically in a show, you want a beginning, middle, and end. And you want a resolution, and then if you want to leave the idea hanging, you can, go with, there's another comedian. But they should have did like a flash of his life before his eyes, and maybe you see the girlfriend standing in the corner, so she came back, so what he did mattered. Or you show like she's just gone or something like that. So we get resolution on his storyline. There's no resolution to his story. And that's the biggest issue. And as I go through these episodes, that's going to be an issue that continuously comes up in this show, except for one episode. There's no resolution to a lot of characters and character development that they bring up. But overall, what did I think of the episode? This episode was a good start, and it gave me hope, and I felt like this episode was a way to lure the audience in along with episode 2, which I'll get to. And I have a big issue with this episode that I'll review next. But overall, it wasn't bad. The jokes were funny. The premise of the story was good. The be careful what you wish for, fame isn't always what it cracked up to be, selling yourself out to become famous. These are all things that I think the writer tackled really well, and it was very chilling. My only thing is, I wish that the main character actually cared more. At the ending he did, but I wish in the beginning he cared more about the ramifications and didn't just use this ability just because. I felt like that's where the writer really dropped the ball on this episode. But overall, it was a solid episode, and I'll give this episode a 7. I was thoroughly invested. It was very suspenseful. It was funny when it needed to be. And overall, the writer of this particular episode knew how to interweave the politics into the story to make it make sense to the character and the character's belief system, which was damn good writing. It's just, I felt like he didn't stick the landing to make this like an 8 or a 9 episode, but it was a solid 7. And it really got me hopeful for what this could be. Until I got halfway in this series. Then, folks. Anyways, this has been General Zod from General Zod's Fandom Zone. If you like this channel and you like this video in particular, hit that like button. If you are new to this channel and you love this content and this beautiful face, then go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And as always, remember the one and only rule here in the Fandom Zone: kneel before your General Zod.